But can they hear? Okay, we'll start with public comment. Is there any public comment for the Land Use Committee meeting today?
I only have the one that wrote in earlier today. And
No.
I can read that off if you're ready for it. Ready? Okay.
Oh, you have one to read in.
Yes, one to read in.
Go ahead.
In 2019, the city collected 11.1 million in utility tax revenue.
Are we on?
Can they hear
You
me?
are on.
I'm home, yes.
And are they in?
They are
Now I can
in
hear
the
you
meeting
better.
on my end, yeah. Can you hear us, Councilmember Tran?
Okay.
I don't know.
Are you ready to read into?
I am. I don't know if they can hear me.
They can't hear?
Councilmember Tran, can you hear us? Or Councilmember Assefa Dawson, can either of you hear us?
Is there anybody in the IT room?
It doesn't look like they can hear us.
They're frozen.
Maybe we're the ones that are really frozen.
It's not that cold outside.
We're going to take a brief recess while we figure it out.
Councilmember Tran, can you hear us? Councilmember Tran, can you hear us?
Yeah. I can hear you too, right now.
Okay, thank you. So, sorry about the wait. On that, I will read off what we received. In 2019, the city collected $11.1 million in utility tax revenue. By 2021, the tax revenue totaled $17 million, an increase of $5.9 million, or 53%. Two utilities, Lake Haven Water and Sewer, and Waste Management, Garbage, and Recycling Services accounted for 92% of the increase. In 2018, the City Council and the public were told that the proposed water and sewer tax will likely result in the net collection of approximately $980,000 from water and sewer business within the city. In 2019, the city council and the public were told that the new waste management contract would result in ratepayer costs totaling $16 million in the first year, and that the additional 10% on garbage and recycling services to support overlay is expected to generate approximately $1.5 million in the first year. In summary, according to city staff, these three measures would result in annual ratepayer costs of $18.5 million. In 2021, they resulted in ratepayer costs of $27.3 million, 47% above the staff prediction. Balancing the needs of the city and the financial impact to residents and businesses is not easy for council members, and inaccurate input from city staff does not help decision-making. One major question emerges, given that the true ratepayer cost of the new waste management contract is over $22 million. Were the losing bidders, Recology and Republic, unfairly eliminated? And that's it.
Okay, so. Well, that was good stereo. Okay, that's our only public comment that we have, so we'll move in to committee business. Is there anything that any of the members would like to bring up before we go to our agenda? Seeing none, we'll go to item A, which is approval of the minutes from February 7th, 2021. Are there any corrections or a motion to accept the minutes?
I have a correction.
Yes, Councilmember Honda.
I was present, and I'm not listed as being present.
What was that?
I was present, and I'm not listed as being present.
Oh, you were present?
It should be listed
Okay, so
in
we
there
need
now.
to adjust that she was present? Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any other additions to the minutes?
I move that they be adopted.
We have is there a second? I will second it. Can Councilmember Tran hear us? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Hear me? You hear you.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
I can now, yes. Okay, did you vote?
I think he's frozen.
Okay.
He keeps freezing. Are you okay?
Okay. Okay, we'll now move on
Yeah.
to, yes, okay, so it's a 3-0 vote. Okay, now we'll move on to item B, the NTS program project, 30th Avenue Southwest, South 312th Place to Southwest 320th Street. We have a presentation and action to move to consent agenda.
Good evening, Chairman Dovey, Councilmember Jack Walsh, and Deputy Mayor Honda, and Council President Kochmar, and Councilmember Tran online. I'm Jason Kennedy, Senior Traffic Engineer in Traffic Division of Public Works. Thank you very much for letting me have the chance to present our most recent NTS project, which is originally took place or started in 2021, located at 30th Avenue Southwest between Southwest 312th Place and Southwest 320th. So basically, the question tonight is, should the council authorize the installation of 5-speed humps on 30th Avenue Southwest between Southwest 311th Street and Southwest 320th, and one traffic circle at the intersection of 30th Avenue and Southwest 314th Street, with the implementation phase over multiple years as funding allows. And I will go through and explain why we're asking that particular question this evening. So here's a map of the area of interest and the study location. It's in the southwest area of the city. It's essentially a no outlet to the north of 312th. And it's a school, there's a school, obviously Decatur is located adjacent to the street. So we received a petition in July of last year with some concerns about excessive speeding on 30th, as well as cars running stop signs at 314th and 30th Avenue Southwest. There were other concerns, I can get into those in a little bit, but 30th Avenue was the main street that was of concern, so we evaluated that, and based on the traffic study, it met the minimum requirements, which are 3.0 for our program at 4 points. I'll go through that data in a little bit, but we collected data at 2 locations in between Southwest 319th and 317th, as well as north of Southwest 314th Street. You can see the data, but essentially we had 85th percentile speeds of, in one location, almost 36 miles an hour, which a posted speed of 25. We also had essentially almost twice the volume in the lower section, southern section of 30th Avenue Southwest. So here's kind of how the data came out. Like I said, we had 85th percentile of 36 miles an hour at one location, and one of the locations had between 1,001 and 1,800 ADT, and there is a school located there, of course, along 30th Avenue Southwest. And this is where the score came out. So the speed, the 85th percentile had the highest possible points we could assign to it with 3, and then we had a half a point assigned to the ADT, and then we also have a 0.5 assigned to the fact that this located next to a school. Total of 4 points. We did not have any collisions on this street that were potentially avoided by any kind of traffic calming. We do have crashes there during the 5 years, but nothing that could be most likely prevented from any kind of countermeasure that we are proposing here tonight, so we don't include that in our analysis. So we had a public meeting via Zoom in November. We put out signs and notifying of the meeting in advance, and we had 8 people from the residential neighborhood attend. Traffic division was also in attendance, and basically got a lot of feedback from essentially to the same extent of what we saw in the petition, which was high rates of speed, drag racing, burnouts, and then ignoring the stop signs. Additionally, we also had concerns about safety along the sidewalk, walking along the street, crossing the street. And then they also had requests to install stop signs at the intersection of 30th and 311th Place, 311th Street, and 310th Street, which was in addition to the request of the speed humps and traffic circle. Now, as part of that outcome, we initially, of course, took those notes and discussed it internally, but prior to even going forward with the speed humps and traffic circle, traffic division has had the stop signs installed at those locations, one of which is a private street, so we had Madera condo install the one at 311th Place as well. So those are in place outside of the NTS program, so that's a positive. So the proposal at hand here is we've got 5 speed humps and 1 traffic circle proposed based on what we've heard from the public and internal discussions, and that included post-public meeting discussion with police, fire, school district, et cetera. The unique part about this proposal over other proposals that we've had recently is that this one is going to be something that we need to phase in over multiple years as funds allow. And then, of course, the other option is to take no action at all. Here's kind of a conceptual plan of where where the locations of the speed humps would be and the traffic circle. So after we decided this was what we were going to propose to the public for their consideration, we submitted, mailed ballots. As you all probably are aware, that we have to have a 51% approval rate to get to approve the ballots, to approve the measure. 216 ballots were mailed, and 64 were returned on time, which is a 30% rate, which is pretty good. And the table shows the results of that ballot, and 69% of the public were in favor of these countermeasures. Based on our internal discussion and our own choice of this, we believe that this is the option one that the staff approves, and it aligns with both the public's opinion as well as the NTS budget policy limits. So based on that is related to this slide, is we have a budget of $50,000 for the annual budget, but not only that, we have a limit on how much a project can spend in one year per neighborhood, which is $15,000. And this project, as it were, if you took it in total, would be approximately $40,000, which would exceed, obviously, that $15,000 threshold. We currently have one project programmed for construction, which is a holdover from last year. And so that one is already accounted for, which leaves about $35,000 available in '22. And on that note, we do get, on average, we fund about 2 to 3 projects a year. It depends on obviously how much each project costs. But I know that was something of interest to this committee. If the entire project was constructed as proposed, it would put us over budget for this year. So what we have proposed in a couple of times in recent history is to phase these projects that are over the $15,000 threshold over multiple years. And so traffic's proposed implementation plan kind of as follows. To be able to install all of these countermeasures. So the first step would be to, again, upon approval by council, is to install 3 speed humps in '22, approximately $12,600. And then we would then install the remaining 2 speed humps in '23. And then we would bank $5,000 towards the traffic circle. And then in '24, bank another $15,000 towards the traffic circle. And then in '25, be able to actually build the traffic circle with the banked money plus the amount that's allocated for '25 for any project, which is $15,000. So it could be up to the $15,000 to fill that difference, whatever extra beyond the $20,000 that's already been banked. So, and I did want to also add, I didn't put it on a slide, but I did look into just kind of get an idea of just the recent history of 5 years of the NTS program for the number of petitions that we get and those projects that meet the criteria. It can range from as little as 2, which we got in 2 petitions that we received in 2020, and I think that's partly because of COVID, all the way up to 11 that we received in 21. And then of those that we did receive, not all those meet the criteria. After we do traffic study, they don't always meet the criteria. Typically, 1 to 3 projects a year meet the criteria and then eventually get constructed. So I just wanted to provide a little, that's the past 5-year kind of snapshot of the kind of the history of the NTS. So now the options, like I said before, are essentially option 1, which is authorize the installation of the 5 speed humps on 30th Avenue Southwest between Southwest 311th and Southwest 320th, and 1 circle at the intersection of 30th Avenue Southwest and Southwest 314th Street, with the implementation phased over multiple years as funding allows. Or option 2, do not authorize installation of the proposed devices and provide direction to the staff. So Mayor's recommendation is to forward option 1 to the city council consent agenda for March 15th. And that is the end of my presentation.
Okay, who wants to ask the first question? Deputy Mayor Honda?
Thank you. So I emailed the chair and EJ earlier about my concerns. So this total project is $56,000, is that correct? If I did the numbers right?
For 5 speed humps and the traffic circle, it is, I'm trying to remember what the total was on that. It's going to be 12,600 plus 8,400, whatever that total is there.
Right, plus 3,500.
Yep.
Okay, so neighborhood traffic safety is really, really important, and especially right next to a high school in which there are probably students who use the road to go back and forth to school. I really wish, and I've said this over the years, that we could fund this program much better, because to wait, so they started this in 2021, it's not, according to what your proposal is, it won't be finished till 2025. That just seems way too long to make people wait for safety. And in those years, those 4 years, something pretty bad could happen. So that's my biggest concern, is that I just don't want to wait for 4 years to get this done, especially since it's been identified as a need.
Correct, yeah, and I think one thing to note, and I didn't mention it, but our internal thought is that potentially if after we install the 5 speed humps, we would revisit things with the neighborhood and the street, and potentially if we feel like that the issue has been resolved, there is potential that the traffic circle may not be necessary, but obviously we're asking for that authorization now. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be spent, but that is something that is an option that Rick and I have considered, discussing after the speed humps have been put in place. So, and the 3 speed humps would be the speed humps that are on the south end, which is where the higher speeds and higher volumes were. So that would be the first kind of phase, like we said, the first step in this year, and then the next 2 would be the northern end speed humps the following year.
So it would be $21,000 to do the 5 speed humps?
Yes, that's correct.
Could you pull up that slide one more time that had all the options on it?
Sure.
Well, I'll just leave my questioning with,
With the
I
map?
wish we could at least do all the speed humps in 1 year and make this a lot safer for the people who live over there and who work and walk and drive and use that street. Thank you.
Councilmember.
So with 15,000, let's see here, 15,000 per neighborhood per budget year, is that a policy that was set by the city council, or is that external to us, or who?
Yes, the city council.
The city council, okay. So the city council set the policy, so the city council could also do something to change the policy then,
Yes.
so.
I agree with you. Could you go to the other slide, not the one that just has the dollars?
Well,
Yeah.
where are you going to the other slide? I have a question that is
That one right
totally inconsequential, but other than spelling, is there a difference between a speed hump and a speed bump?
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that complex, boy.
Well, speed bumps are what you usually find in parking lots, and they're very abrupt. The ironic thing about them is, if you drive at the right speed, it's not good for your suspension, but you won't notice it as much. So what we install are speed humps, which are 8 feet long, and the idea being that that's about the length of a lot of wheelbases of vehicles. And so when you go up, actually, I'm sorry, 22 feet long, no, 14. See, I can't even get it straight. So 14 foot long. So when one side of the vehicle is going up, the other side is dropping, and so that's what creates the feeling that, okay, I'm going too fast, I need to slow down. So that's mostly what we're installing. We also do speed tables. Those are the 22 feet long ones. And those we do on the higher speed streets. So if a street is posted at 25, we'll do the speed humps. And if it's 30, we'll do speed tables, because they don't slow emergency vehicles down as much. So that's the distinction between those three.
Thank you. I'm not educated about it.
I guess the question I have, maybe following up on Council Deputy Mayor Honda, this is a public safety issue, correct?
Yes, I would
So
characterize that.
It would seem to me, you build all 5 speed humps in 1 year, so you don't have to mobilize twice. And I don't know if you pick up any economies of scale, but that if we're going to do it, it seems crazy to do 3 and then come back a year later to do 2 more. Am I missing something other than money?
Well, money, excuse me, money is the big part, certainly. So there are other applications that are in, or we are aware that neighborhoods have reached out to us that are putting in applications for 2022. And you're absolutely right that safety is important. But the catch is we don't know what other applications are going to score that very well may score higher than this. And that principally is the reason that this policy was put in place, was that we don't do exactly what this conversation is, and then an application comes in with a higher need, to force it to be spread around the city and provide some geographic equity from year to year. So ultimately we'll do whatever council directs. If it's put in all 5 this year, we will. I would not want to be the one to have to bring to council that something scored higher than the application we're talking about right now, later this summer, and say, but we've already spent the money. So that's my nervousness around this topic of what happens if an application comes in with a higher score. And that's why this policy was put in place with the 15 grand. So, and I will echo the council or deputy mayor's comments that certainly this has been a topic that, finding money to shore up this program has been something that's been discussed many times over. And I think, it would certainly be put to good use if it were.
Is there, with applications coming in, is there any deadline or timetable for it, or they can be submitted at any time?
It's anytime, and we handle them on a first-come, first-served basis. So most years, I think Rick can probably tell you better than I can, but this is one of the very few times since I've even been with the city that we've actually managed to catch up with the applications. Usually, we're approving applications for construction 2 to 3 years out, just based on, you can see they're not cheap applications, and $50,000 a year gets eaten up pretty quick. So typically, we're building applications that were approved 2 years prior. Is pretty much the standard, but with that slow year because of COVID, we've actually managed to catch up. So unfortunately, this build schedule is not abnormal for this program.
All right, thank you, EJ.
How many other applications are in right now? I mean, if we were to decide on this right now, you're not going to do it for 90 days, 120 days before you mobilize? I mean, what's the cycle for the rest of the year?
It's pretty quick. So we have a standing contract that we bid on a 2-year basis. So effectively, obviously we'll wait till after the council meeting and it being approved. But after that, it's just a matter of us making a phone call to the contractor. There's no bidding process or anything like that. That's all already done. So it's really more at this time of year, it's going to be dependent on weather. That's going to be the driving factor.
Yes, Deputy Mayor
you.
Honda?
In the context of our city budget, this isn't very much money. But for this neighborhood, it's really, really important. And for safety, it's really important. And so, we've been spending money quite freely the last 2 years. That a lot of it hasn't been our money, it's been money that the federal government has given to us. But I would really like to see the 5 speed humps go in this year and wait on the traffic circle to see if the speed humps take care of the situation. And then look at where we could add more money to this program.
Yes, Councilperson.
Thank you, Chair Doby. So I'm wondering, Mr. Davis, can we use any of the ARPA funds, take some of one of the projects that was going to be for the ARPA and put this in its stead?
So this is classified as maintenance technically, so.
Oh, it wouldn't work.
So no.
Thank you.
But we could do the 5 speed humps now and delay a project later in the year to roll over to 2023 if we wanted to, correct?
Another NTS project, yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
So, I mean, this is the first one in, the next one's gonna show up, eventually we'll run out of money. So why would we,
So
I mean,
this-
I'm for doing the 5 speed humps and then taking the other thing and moving it back. The next person that comes in or the next one gets to this process, we got less money to do and we'll just do less.
Yeah, so this is the second project, so we've already approved one $15,000 a year for construction in 2022. I think it was technically approved 21, but it's 22 construction.
But it was
Councilmember
21 budget?
No,
No,
it was
20
approved in 21 for expenditure in the 22 budget.
22 budget, okay.
So
And
we've
that's-
already approved one,
And how much is it for?
15.
15?
Max.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Tran.
this is Han.
Han?
I just want to let you know that Lydia has been waiting. I see her hands is up quite some time now. FYI.
Sorry, I haven't seen your hand up there, so go right ahead.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Tran. And yeah, my question, I had several, but I think they were asked. But you have 20% of the respondents saying don't do anything, right?
More, 31.
31%.
31% said, yeah, okay. So, and I think the count was 20, maybe that's where I got the 20. My question is, do they say why not? I'm just curious, because it seems like it's very important, but yet that many people felt like we don't need it. Do you have an idea of why that was the case?
We do, on our ballots, we do have a blank where they can leave comments. Some just don't feel that speed humps are necessary. Some wanted just speed humps, but not a traffic circle. One wanted, some might have wanted a traffic circle, not the speed humps. Some didn't leave their names, and they said no, there was no comments on why. So it ranges on, I think, a wide range of, personal reasons, but I think it can vary, but those are some of the a range of the comments that we do get from time to time. I can definitely find out, I can get you a specific list of the comments for this one.
Yeah, it just seemed to be high enough to where it was interesting that you have 64 and then 31. It's almost half of the people who said yes. But that said, I do agree with what was said in terms of the importance of having it. But also, I totally agree with the fact that if another project comes up with higher scoring, then how do you respond to that? It's a very valid question. So if and when it comes to full council, I want if there's any discussion around that, because I know we have a dollar limit to any project. So if we're making an exception, then I think we also need to figure out how we can fund or finance a more needy project in the future. So hopefully that could be a conversation next time we talk about this. Thank you.
Councilmember Walsh?
You're saying that there have been no accidents there the last few years, or?
Well, we look at the 5-year crash history, and there were a couple of crashes along that stretch of street. But when we look at the crashes, you look at, we do our best to look at, what the reports say and what was happening and that sort of thing. And we try to look to see if what we are looking to install would have likely made a difference in that crash or not, right? And if it's unrelated, if it's a drunk driver or something like that, where this kind of thing likely would not have made an impact on that crash being happening, then we don't count it towards the crash history in this particular case.
And with that, going back to the one chart that shows where you did the rating, the 85% speed mile per hour.
This,
Yes,
Yep.
that lower one there. So in the area that was 35.8 miles per hour, is that the area where it's proposed that there would be the 3 speed
Yes.
bumps that would be put
Correct.
in this year?
yes,
And then where it's a 30.4 mile per hour, it was where the 2 speed bumps or speed humps would be put in later on.
yes, that's correct.
So then perhaps the 3 speed humps would take care of the greater part of the problem.
Yeah, and that's where most of the volume as well, if you can see,
Yeah, nearly twice the volume
Yep.
there. Mhm.
Council President Cosar?
But that was pretty much my question. I was just wondering what would have more effect, the speed, traffic circle or, accumulated speed humps. So the traffic circle, would that, I mean.
Well, they kind of address different issues, right? So we had one, several folks on the public meeting, concerned about people blowing through the stop sign at that intersection. That traffic circle would essentially, hopefully, address that issue. The speed humps are going to more address the high speed, straight high speed issue, which is in that section, which is on the southern end of 30th Avenue coming off of 320th. That's, what those speed humps would potentially address those. So kind of separate issue. That's why we ultimately decide as this is a combined, when you deal with engineering things, sometimes you have to combine things to make the whole issue go away. I'm not saying it will go away completely, but at least address it.
So right now, the most impact for the buck is with the 3 speed humps.
Sorry, say that again?
The most impact right now with the money available would be the 3 speed humps.
That is my opinion, essentially, yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, in light of that, since, that's definitely the area that needs it the most, I would be fine with just sticking with the proposal the way it is, and following through with what staff had proposed, because it does seem like that those 3 speed humps would take care of the greater part and the most dangerous part of the problem. Obviously, a crash at 35 miles an hour, almost 36 miles an hour, and one at 30 miles an hour, there's a significant difference in the danger level of it.
Can I make one suggestion, though? I have a real hard time carrying the money over for a project for this long a period of time. So maybe we just want to do the 3 speed humps, have this one come back later if they need the other 2 or the circle, because if there might be other places in the neighborhood around the city that are going to need these, but 5 years or 4 years to run this program seems way too long. Either do all the speed humps or only do 3 of them. I don't think you just keep rolling it.
So if 3 were done now and 2 were done later, it seems to me by having the crew come out and do 2 later, that would increase the cost. Is that true? No?
No, because we bid this as a contract for a 2-year period, so they give us a price per speed bump for the entire duration of the contract. So our price is the same whether we do 1 or 10.
Okay.
So it's a unit price. So, Chair, I hear your comment. I would recommend that if council's agreeable, the authorization be for the 3 initial and then the 2 follow-up in 2023, and then certainly come back for the roundabout, or the traffic circle, rather, not a roundabout, that we're talking about. That would be in line with what we've been doing with the other NTS requests recently, where it's been more speed bumps or humps that can be funded in a singular year. So, and at that point, it's 1 year, it's not carry forward, it's just encumbering a future expenditure.
And if I may just add one thing, the one thing is a little unique about this location as opposed to, like, say, the last one, which did have a traffic circle. This intersection is slightly, it's oddly shapen. There's actually a a splitter island there right now that has to be removed, and the size of the circle that's going to be installed there is slightly larger, would be slightly larger, and actually oddly shapen, if you will, for lack of, it's not going to be a completely round circle that's going to fit in that location. So there's going to be a little bit, that's why it's a little bit more than what we would have done on a previous traffic circle. So I want to just throw that in there as well.
So let me just ask the question one more time. If this was really, really important, we wouldn't be talking about $15,000 versus $20,000, because it's really small money. We're talking about a policy that was set. I think I was on the council when we did that, because we were getting a tremendous amount of people asking for these. And so to say that this is important but not important enough to do all the traffic circles at one time, or the bumps at all one time, we're being bound by old rules that maybe should be looked at. And so to say, I think it's important we do this. I'm not sure the traffic circle is the necessary thing. That's the thing in my mind that I would look at. But if we're making this decision because a council a long time ago said 15,000 when we were getting swamped with all sorts of people asking for these, then maybe we should rethink why we're doing it, because it just seems like we're saying, oh, we're going to do 3 because we got a policy that says we got to do 2 more the next year, and then the next year, and the next year, and that just doesn't make sense to me. That's why I say either do 3, but I don't really want to think it's right to carry it over year after year after year. Either do it or don't. That's just my thought on it.
I have a question. So we've identified that this street needs some work for safety. So let's say that we do the 3, and then where the other 2 in the traffic circle was going to go in, something really bad happens to a kid on a bike or because someone was speeding. Are we at all responsible as a city because we've identified that this is an issue?
We're no more liable than we are today, is the short answer. But ultimately, that would be something that would be in front of a court and a jury, which is a little hard to speculate on how they would find it. But we already have liability just by the nature of the fact that there's a city road there. Having something there doesn't necessarily increase because we took an action or did not take an action.
So even though we've identified that this is a safety concern and we didn't take care of it.
So this is a neighborhood program. This isn't something that's on an arterial on 55 miles an hour. So there's a little bit of a distinction there. But yes, that I'm sure that would come up in a jury trial, that the city had a meeting and talked about this and should have been doing something. But ultimately, that is a question that would go before a jury. And in theory, the answer should be no, but certainly people can be persuaded.
I would just like the city to, I'd like to see all 5 put in it. But
Chair Dovey?
Yes.
My opinion about this is, for this particular project, maybe we can just go ahead and approve it as it's submitted to us. And then I agree with you. We need to revisit the old rules that we set up many years ago regarding the $15,000 or the selection of the humps of bumps in the future. But for the purpose of this, I think we just approve it and then revisit the other issue later.
Okay, so I think Councilmember Walsh has a motion to accept option 1. Are you, did you?
I personally, I think it would be best to accept option 1 with the, but not include the traffic circle in that at this time later, next year. If we decide that we need the traffic circle, go ahead and do it then, rather than making a commitment right now for 2 years down the road.
Okay. So is that a motion?
Yes, that's the motion. Do I need to reword that, make it a motion, or can staff tell me how it should be stated?
I'd suggest a motion that reads, I move to put forward the proposed option 1 installation of 5 speed humps on 30th Ave Southwest between Southwest 311th Street and Southwest 320th Street, but without a traffic circle at the intersection of 30th Ave Southwest and Southwest 314th Street, with implementation phased over multiple years as funding allows, to the March 15th, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
I move that.
So moved.
Okay,
Second that.
you second that. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go, as all in favor, and then we're all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
And then we will have a discussion about process. Can we get that on the agenda for the next land use meeting? A process, would that, where it start?
Yeah, well, it started at LUTC, yes.
Okay. Or the next,
Let's
in the
talk
next
to
two,
staff.
next two
Yeah,
meetings?
I'd say it
or
might
so?
be 2 meetings
Yeah,
realistically.
so we'll
for
get
us to
that on the
do but,
process so we
yeah.
can get past this for next time. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move to item number 3.
I have a question.
Yes,
We have 2 council members on Zoom. Oh, there they are, but we're not seeing them when they're speaking, which we normally would when they're on Zoom. Is there a reason why? I don't understand it, so I'm asking. Okay.
You
Thank
can
you.
see the council chambers.
Can you see us?
just
Yeah,
wave.
you're small, but we know that you're there.
Okay.
yeah, I
All
can
right.
see you.
Well, you're not too large
And we can
yourself,
see each
so-
other also.
Yeah, next time whistle or something, okay? Next,
All right.
next time, we're going to item B, which is the NTS program project, 30th Avenue Southwest. Oops, excuse me, I did that one. We're going to the Npdes annual report and stormwater management. All right.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening, council members and committee members. My name is Emile Ansley, and I am the Surface Water Program Supervisor in the Department of Public Works. And I'm here to talk to you today about the Npdes annual report that we turn into Ecology on March 31st of every year. So the policy question at hand is, should council approve and authorize the submittal of the 2022 annual report and stormwater management program plan documents to the Department of Ecology as required by the Npdes Western Washington Phase 2 Municipal Stormwater Permit? For those of you that are unaware of what the permit is, it's the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit. The idea is that rainwater stays rainwater all the way back to the Puget Sound. There's a number of pollutant-generating sources when water falls in the city, and as it makes its way through the city systems, the permit programs that the city has in place work to keep that stormwater clean. Without the permit, the discharge coming from the city systems would be polluted, and with the permit, we are able to keep that water clean going to the sound. There are certain types of the permit that are issued. It's an EPA permit. Every state is issued, either the EPA is responsible for it, but in the state of Washington, Washington was issued permission by the EPA to run its own permit program. It's split in between phases, so we are in, or divisions, so we are in Western Washington. We're a Phase 2 permit because when the permit was issued, the city of Federal Way was under 100,000 citizens. The only Phase 1 permit that we have in Western Washington is the King County permit for Seattle, and the discharge type is municipal stormwater. The permit is issued on a rotating basis. This one was issued in 2019, and it expires in it expires in 2024. Every permit comes with new requirements. The city of Federal Way is they're ahead of the game on a number of these. But the permits all have losing my words, excuse me. The permit all has certain sections that need to be addressed by the city. So stormwater planning, public education and outreach, even public participation and involvement, Ms4 mapping, source control, monitoring. It has a number of things, number of programs that the city needs to implement and has implemented already. What I'm here to ask of the council and the committee is to approve the annual report that reports on all of these programs that the city already has in place. So throughout the year, stormwater planning, there are a number of things that we've done. We're following the Surface Water Management Comprehensive Plan, and we have an interdisciplinary team that convenes every year to talk about this. And we are currently working towards the SMAP, or the Stormwater Management Action Plan, that is due by 2023. That is requiring us to delineate our watersheds, to prioritize the watersheds that need the most work, and then to come up with a scoring system and then a plan to implement improvements in those watersheds. Public education outreach is another component of it. The city implements, with help from the school system, the Storming the Sound program, and we partner with ECOS to provide spill kits to local businesses, and they also reach out to local businesses that are known to be pollutant generating businesses. So other than the programs and the inspections that the city personnel go out and do, we also have partnerships with the schools and ECOS, the school system and ECOS, to implement those other programs. Every year, Stormwater Management Program Plan, or lots of acronyms, the SWAMP, is updated and put on the website, and we ask for public input. Gives people a chance to comment on, what they think the city should be doing, or how we can improve the stormwater quality going to the sound. We also partner to monitor lake levels, and this year the volunteer stream team program was kicked off again after being canceled in 2021 because of COVID. And the volunteer stream team is just citizens of Federal Way that want to be involved in water quality monitoring. The Ms4 mapping, this is one of the areas where the city's pretty far ahead of the game. We already use Art Collector, we already use GIS, everything's already electronic. The IDDE program is very well established with the city, and usually respond to a bunch of illicit discharge notifications every year. This year again, over 100. Controlling runoff from new development, redevelopment, and construction sites is also part of this. So they inspected over 505 sites and reviewed 85 plans. The operation and maintenance crew that's out at Steel Lake also is a big part of this, where they inspected over 6,000 catch basins and cleaned over 1,000 of them this year alone, and inspected 485 stormwater treatment and flow control facilities. Source control is one of the areas where the city is really excelling. So the permit only requires that we check 20% of our inventory of local businesses, and we do that. It's a way for us to get out there and just talk to local businesses, get with them before they create an illicit discharge. So we go on the site, inspect the entire business site, get with them about what may be a pollutant generating source, and we get with them to clean it or come up with a plan to manage it before it becomes a problem. And of the list that has been generated by staff, last year they inspected not only 100, but they restarted the list. They inspected every business on the list, and they went back to the beginning and restarted it. So we're blowing that criteria out of the water. Monitoring, we pay into SAM. So the city does not yet monitor. We do our own basic monitoring for lakes and streams, but we pay into the state level SAM program that is specific to the Npdes permit. So this reporting is just the last part of it. You can see that we've checked off every other necessary part of the program of the Npdes permit, and the last part that is due in March 31st, 2022 is just the annual report, which is what I'm here to have approved today. And the options to be considered are to approve the 2022 annual report and stormwater management plan, program plan documents, and authorize the Public Works Directors to submit these documents to the Department of Ecology by March 31st, 2022 to satisfy the city's Npdes permit obligations, or 2, do not approve the 2022 annual report and stormwater management program plan documents and provide direction to staff. I recommend option 1.
Are there any questions?
Yeah. I was reading through a lot of material that you'd submitted in the packet. And one of the things that said that the businesses that were the biggest challenge were automotive businesses and restaurants. With restaurants, why is there surface water discharge there? It seems like with restaurants, it'd be sanitary sewer.
Well, grease traps are a big one, and dumpsters, open dumpsters. So with rainwater falling into dumpsters, one of the big things that we see when we go to do our inspections are open lids and dumpsters, so rainwater's getting in there, and then leachate is dripping out.
Okay.
And then the restaurants it's typically grease related.
Okay, that makes sense. One other question is, you say that you have volunteers working with the program, but there was less, during COVID for obvious reasons. Typically, do you have sufficient volunteers, or is that something that you would like to see more volunteers?
Always want to see more volunteers. We always want to see the citizens and constituents get involved. But we had a pretty good turnout this year, especially for Stream Team considering. But no, that's always something that we shoot to or would like to gain traction on.
Okay. Currently, how are you finding the volunteers?
What do you mean by that? I'm sorry.
How do, the volunteers that you do have, how have they been, what have you done to attract those volunteers?
Well, to attract them is a good question. I'm pretty new at the city. I've been relying on the education outreach departments and our water quality specialist, who has been here for quite a while, who is familiar with all the programs. But we had a really good turnout for the storm drain marking program. I was involved with that, and so people are coming pretty regularly, and that's just a kit that they pick up to go and mark storm drains with the, no dumping drains to Puget Sound stickers or plaques or stencils, which everyone were doing at the time. The Stream Team, I'd like to see more involvement in that for sure. We had, I think, 4 groups of 2, so roughly 8 people participating in it. It's a citizen science program. It's as much to teach them as it is to help us get information and to make them involved make them feel involved and invested in the water quality of their area. But I think it would be great if there would be more volunteers to participate in the Stream Team program. So what we did with that is that we basically just print out flyers and go to the schools, go to the local businesses. We put up flyers as many places as possible and ask people if they're interested to contact the Surface Water Division and then we hold 2 meetings to train them on how to use the equipment, and then we assign them a stream to monitor.
All right.
But right now, the outreach to get people involved is mostly through flyers and making phone calls.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, would you like to make a motion?
As soon as I find all right. I move to approve the 2022 annual report. Turn that on. I move to approve the 2022 annual report and SWMP plan documents and authorize the Public Works Director to submit these documents to the Department of Ecology by March 31, 2022 to satisfy the city's Npdes permit obligations.
Councilmember, I hate
Yes.
to do this to Councilmember Jack
Yes.
W. But I think the committee recommendation is on top of what you just read. It's very short.
Yeah.
You're right. Thank you, Councilmember Tran.
Sorry.
I move to forward option 1 to March 15, 2022 City Council consent agenda for approval. That was a lot easier to say.
I second that.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the report. We'll now move to item number D, transportation grant funding. Yes, we like grants.
All right, let me find my presentation. All right, good evening, Chair, committee members, members of council. I am here to request authorization to apply for transportation grants. The question is, should City Council authorize submittal of these transportation grant applications? So some background information. The Puget Sound Regional Council conducts a biannual program for distribution of federal grant funds. The program this year that we believe will be most competitive for is the countywide grant program. We have 4 proposed grant applications that I will go into more detail further in the presentation. One is for Pacific Highway Non-Motorized Trail Phase 2. The next one is City Center Access, BPA Trail Extension, Phase 1, and a couple of preservation projects, one on South 320th and one on South 324th. So we very heavily depend on transportation grants in order to have a robust capital improvement program for transportation. We use our restricted funds to leverage to get more grant funds, because most of these grants do require a match. Some of them require more than others. So the restricted funds we generally leverage on an annual basis is about $2.5 million of real estate excise tax, $800,000 of motor vehicle excise tax, about $2 million in solid waste excise tax. And then there's also some transportation impact fees and mitigation funds that we usually get. It varies year to year, but around about $500,000 a year we've been getting. So the first project I want to talk about, we would like to apply for a grant for, is Pacific Highway Non-Motorized Trail, Phase 2. So this trail is parallel to Pacific Highway. It's not on Pacific Highway. It was identified as a high-priority project in our bicycle pedestrian plan. The portion of this trail goes from 308th up to 288th. We have been getting grant funds through this program for the different phases for the last couple of grant rounds. So we got design funds 4 years ago. 2 years ago, we got right-of-way funds to purchase right-of-way that's needed. This past year, we also were awarded Safe Route to Schools funding to construct the portion of this trail that is behind Sacagawea Park and Middle School. And what this grant we would like to do is to apply for the remainder of the construction funds, which would be Phase 2, which looks a little odd because it's on either side of Phase 1. So in summary, this estimated project cost for the construction for Phase 2 is $3.5 million. We believe we could get about $3 million with a $500,000 grant match. The next project we would like to pursue is part of our City Center Access project, and it is another non-motorized trail extension. When we would apply for the first phase of the project, which is design. So, little background on City Center Access project. It's something that we've been pursuing for over decades now, I think. But the most recent evolution of this project resulted in City Council approving that we move forward with preliminary design and environmental documentation. And this design that you see in front of you, and I'll go over some of the aspects, was approved in November of 2020 by City Council. So it does include the larger part of the project, which is the modification of the 320th interchange, which includes extending the ramps to 324th, an overpass at 324th, an extension of 324th over to Warehouser Way. And then also included in this project are multimodal improvements, including HOV lanes on 320th to be extended, as well as several non-motorized improvements, one of which is this BPA trail extension, which would ultimately pick up where it stops at 11th and 324th and extend it into the city center and more specifically, getting people to the light rail station at 23rd and 320th. Eventually, this trail would extend as kind of roughly outlined in our bike ped plan to get back up to the BPA trail alignment and extend over to Auburn, Kent, the other trail systems in South King County. So design estimated project cost is about $800,000. We believe we can get about $650,000 of grant funds for this specific project. The last two projects are the preservation or overlay program. Two projects that we proposed shown on the map, South 320th Street between First Avenue and Pacific Highway. That would be for design and construction. And then South 324th between 11th and Pacific Highway. The first project is estimated at $3 million. This project is most competitive if we bring half the money to the table. So we always want to get maximum points for our match, and so we just do a kind of one-to-one match. So possible grant funds for that one is $1.5 million with the same amount match. And then 324th, a smaller project, $700,000 project with $350,000 in grant funds. So options considered are to authorize a grant application submittal, and option 2, do not authorize grant application submittal and provide direction to staff. The mayor recommends option 1, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Deputy Mayor Honda?
Oh, thank you. So on the funding for the trail to the light rail station,
Yes,
there's already a sidewalk along that street.
yes, there is.
So why would there need to be a trail?
The reason being is that right now there's a sidewalk as well as a bicycle lane. So the bigger issue we have is the bicycle facility. It's not one that most people feel comfortable with, especially on higher volume roads. And so what we would be doing is converting the bicycle lane. Basically, we would take the bicycle lanes off and then widen the sidewalk facility to make it more of a off-road, non-motorized trail with a buffer. So it's a much more comfortable facility and consistent with trail standards as opposed to it being like an on-street bike lane.
So then is 324th down to just 2 lanes without a, I realize the road's going to be changed, right? When this is all done, it won't look like it looks now.
Correct.
So there'll be a trail which takes more space just on one side,
Yes, on the north side of 324th.
and then the sidewalk would still be on the other side?
Yes.
And the road would be 2 lanes or,
No, the
And-
lane, the lanes on the road will still be the same.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Walsh?
Yeah, now, isn't along there, I mean, there's talk of having a second, there's talk of having a second exit from I-5 to 324th, correct? I mean, how would that impact, I mean, would we be doing something then redoing it again if there's that additional exit off of I-5?
There will be some additional roadway work and widening. So the idea is we would like to offset the trail to a point where it wouldn't be minimally impacted by any future work that the additional off-ramps onto 324th and the subsequent little bit of widening of 324th would entail.
Would it make more sense to delay that portion until that time, so it could all be done in conjunction? Wouldn't that be more cost effective?
I would love for it to happen, but the thing is, we got a station showing up, right? Hopefully opening in 2024, and we really want to take this opportunity to give a really good facility for those who want to access the station via bike from the greater part of Federal Way they can make it then all the way on a off-street trail to get to the station.
Have there been any studies to see what kind of demand there will be for bikes to the station?
Yeah, Rick could probably give a little bit more, but they're counting on that access to the station is going to be, it's limited in terms of the amount of single occupancy cars that can go and park there. And they limited the amount of parking with the hopes that either they're going to access it by other modes, whether that be transit or by non-motorized means.
Okay, all right. A different question then on a different part of it. This 3/20th preservation thing, I don't really understand what it is.
It's an overlay project. So what it would be, and these grants would not have construction happening on them or money spent until either 2025 or 2026 is how these grants are. So you apply for them now for money that is in the plan for the future. So the preservation project would be in 2025 to overlay that section of 320th.
Okay, and so that would be the, basically the sidewalk on the side of 320th, or is it on 320th itself, or?
No, on 320th South, so
The
we
bike
need
lane
to.
on 320th.
No, sorry. For the preservation project, it's an asphalt overlay project. So you grind the existing surface off and put in a brand-new surface. You repair any of the potholes or cracks, and then as part of that, you upgrade the sidewalks to meet current ADA standards at the same time.
Okay, so it's overlay of 320th itself then?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
The
I
way
know, it's a
presented, It
termin.
sounds like it was talking bikes and pedestrian, sidewalks and trails, but it's not. That 3 million is for an overlay of 320th itself.
Right, two different programs. So when we compete for those trail programs, they compete for a separate non-motorized program. And then there's another program that's just for overlays or preservation projects, which is just to put on asphalt overlay on the existing road surface.
Okay, all right.
So the question, if we didn't win the grant for the overlay, we would still do that on our own money? This just extends the ability of what we can do?
Yeah, absolutely, because by then, based on our pavement ratings for that road, it's going to need some sort of heavy maintenance by that time. So we pick the roads based on their ratings and when they're going to need to be overlaid.
Councilmember Sefa Dawson has her hand up.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for recognizing. My question is, when you have the safe school route, sorry if I missaid it. And when we're using that grant to do that project, does the school also participate financially in that, or do we use the grant that we get to support the safe school routes?
Thank you very much. The Safe Route to School program is the name of the program, so the school district is not contributing financially at all to the program. So it is a trail that is in public right-of-way, so it belongs to us. It doesn't belong to the school at all. Obviously, it will benefit the school, which is why we got the grant, because of where it's located, but they are not contributing financially at all to it.
So we get the grant and we do the work, and they're just the beneficiary of the project.
Yes.
But it's always near a school, correct?
Yes, that's the criteria, yeah, for the product, for those grants.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions? We'll get a motion.
I move to forward the proposed authorization for grant application submittals to the March 15, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Information-only item, Puget, project update on sound transit projects in Federal Way.
All right, good evening, Chair Doby, committee members, and council members. My name's Ryan Medlin, and I'm the city liaison to Sound Transit, here to present this month's update. It'll be a short update because it was February last month, so between the weather and the low number of days, not much new work was able to happen, but columns are still in process, most visibly in the Commons Mall area. Once they're completed, they hope to have the rest of those girders up by the end of the year. For the girders that were previously delivered this year, they're currently working on the guideway decks, which involves pouring some concrete in preparation for getting the track work started. Work in the area of the new parking garage, which will be located at 21st and South 316th, has started. Currently, the work you would see them doing is that they're putting in a piling wall to allow them to build a ramp down so that they can excavate for a future detention vault that's going under the west garage entrance. Utility work on South 320th in coordination with Lake Haven continues. They're hoping to get some roadway restoration work done. We have some cold temperatures coming up this week, which will push some of the work off. And once that work's done, it'll actually probably be the column we'll see on the north side of 320th before the storm drain line. And then north of South 317th, work continues on finishing some walls and utility relocations. The contractor actually has a goal of getting at least some landscaping back along I-5, hopefully in by the end of this year. With the OMF South, there's no real update since the last Land Use and Transportation Committee. Just a reminder, the final EIS is expected to be released later this year for public comment ahead of final site selection for the OMF South. And with Tacoma Dome Link Extension, there's also no update since the last LUTC meeting. So with that, I'll transition to any questions you may have.
Councilmember Walsh, and then Deputy Mayor Honda.
Okay. Has the concrete strike impacted work down here, or is that only up in other areas that it's?
So the concrete strike is kind of the line between some of the unions that are striking is actually right around 272nd, so Federal Way is outside of the areas that are impacted.
Okay. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you. So I have a rather strange question, but I think it's worth looking into. When I've tried to take light rail in the past, and I've gone to the garages that are in the SeaTac area, and there's no parking, so you just can't take light rail. We know that this is going to be the end of the line for many years, and we anticipate that folks from all around Pierce County and South King County wanting to use light rail to get into Seattle to work, because we assume that Seattle is going to be getting back to what they were in the past, that the parking is going to go really fast. So is there any way, and maybe Sound Transit has already done this in one of their garages, that the city in which the garage is located at, that there are parking spots reserved for people who live in that city, say up to 9 or 10 a.m.?
So I don't believe we have permitting requirements at the existing garage, and I don't know of any permitting requirements that are planned regardless of anybody's geographical location. I know before the pandemic, they were talking about starting a permitting program that would then have restrictions on parking spaces, but since then, I mean, the parking garage has been at a significantly reduced capacity. So I don't know if I don't believe that they've gotten to that thinking in their operations. EJ, I don't know if you know of anything different from the existing facility.
No, that's correct, everything you said. The only station that I'm aware of that has something along the lines of what you're describing is actually the sounder station at Kent Station. And that was put in place because a combination of the city of Kent as well as the developer for Kent Station, and specifically the college that's there, put in substantial money to increase the size of that parking garage. And I don't remember the numbers, but for argument's sake, say they increased it by 20% or whatever the right number was. They do have a certain number of reserved parking specifically for Green River students because of that, because they paid for it. That's the only one that I'm aware of, though, that kind of has what you're getting at. But Ryan is correct. Before the pandemic started, Sound Transit was working on rolling out a program that was permitting, that was a lottery-based local resident permitting system. I believe it was through 8 a.m., and then after 8 a.m., the spots would be open to anybody. But to address exactly what you're talking about, that kind of got shelved with the pandemic, and I haven't heard anything from Sound Transit if they're planning on bringing that back or not.
Well, I can see that this is going to be a problem when this gets going, and hearing that, you know, we would expect people to be riding buses to take light rail, which I assume some people will, but I wouldn't want that to be the only way that they can take light rail. Because riding a bus when it's wet and cold, I mean, riding a bike when it's wet and cold, there are certainly people that do that, but I can't imagine that all bike riders would do that just to, you know, take light rail, so.
Agreed. And I do know from their environmental study that they also expect a good number of the riders are supposed to arrive by bus. Obviously, this is a further south station than their existing stations, so this study is just that, it's a study. But for places that aren't Federal Way, I think the hope is that residents of like Edgewood or down in Tacoma or those places would go to more localized transit centers and then take the bus ride to the light rail station where they then get on the light rail vehicle. So that was the operational thinking that went into the environmental impact statement for the Federal Way link extension back when the planning for the project was being done circa 2016.
Well, maybe we need to keep working on that and have incentives for people coming from Pierce County that they would park in Pierce County and take transit to use light rail. I really, you know, it opens in 2 years or so, and I know planning is being done now, but I want to make sure that people who live here in Federal Way and who have put up with the disruption of this will be able to use light rail if they want to. And that, for many people, means that they would need a parking spot, because even though I realize that a study is being done now or will be done before the light rail begins, we do not have enough buses that go out into the areas where people in Federal Way live. And if they can't catch a bus near their home, they're not going to take it. So they'll be driving to the station, or they'll try to get someone to drop them off at the station. I just want to make sure that our residents, people who live here, will be able to find parking if they need to use light rail.
Agreed, and I would encourage you not to let the comment die, because we have part of our development agreement with them is that they have to do a parking study both the year before opening and after opening, and while it's targeted at localized impacts, parking is parking, so we can inject that into the conversation, assuming that the world turns back on like we all hope it will in the next few months, and we're back to where we were in 2019 with regards to the parking situation there.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Walsh?
Yeah, I mean, despite Sound Transit's attempt at social engineering, there's not going to be a lot of people that are going to want to be standing out waiting for a bus out in the neighborhoods. But along with that, the park and ride that's the old park and ride over closer to the freeway. I mean, it's quite a walk from there over to the Sound Transit station. That does. Do they have any plans of a shuttle or anything to go back and forth, and some covered waiting area for waiting for a shuttle then, if there is?
I would have to look at the bus routing maps again. I don't remember that any of them stopped at both effectively, and I don't know, I don't recall seeing a shuttle service per se. They have signage at one and the other indicating, you know, if you're at the garage and it's full, you can park here and vice versa. But I don't know of any shuttle that's planned at this time, no.
Okay, because I think that would be a good idea for it also.
Oh, Councilmember Sapadassin has her hand up.
There, go ahead, Lydia.
Thank you. We've had this before, but I just want also to add disabled parking spots to be also part of that study, please.
Yes, and I can say the ADA parking spaces, we actually found a way to fit it into the building code to make sure that they're much more accessible to the station itself than it would be if they were located in the garage. So there's going to be a smaller lot next to the station where a good number of ADA spaces will be available that will reduce the walking path from those spaces from about 700 to 800 feet down to about 100 feet, 50 to 100 feet. So
Thank you so much.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your update.
all right, thank you.
And last, we have item F, the quarterly update on the periodic update of the comprehensive plan. That sounds like fun, right?
A lot of fun.
You did great at the chamber the other day.
Oh.
Good job. And so did you. Good job.
I second that.
Oh, actually. It's been a minute since I've shared a screen on Zoom, I'm sorry. I'm sharing now. Okay, great. Good evening, Chair Dovey, LUTC Committee, Council President Kochmar, Deputy Mayor Honda, and the other council members. I'm Cheney Skatson, and I'm a senior planner in the Planning Division, and this is the first quarterly update on the 2024 Comprehensive Plan Periodic Update. So what are we doing here? This is, like I said, the first quarterly meeting, and I'm going to go over the process and progress of city staff working to update the comprehensive plan. So before we jump in, the comprehensive plan periodic update, the comprehensive plan itself is the city's map for the future and provides goals, policies, and actions that are intended to guide the day-to-day decisions of elected officials and of staff. Update 2024 is what we're calling this project, and it will be pushing the planning horizon out for another 20 years, so we're looking towards planning for 2044. Each Washington city and county must periodically update their comprehensive plan, and if needed, revise the development regulations on an 8-year basis to be consistent with the Growth Management Act. So one thing that's really important before we get started, or as we start this process, is updating the vision for the city. So a vision statement is helps identify the community's values, sense of identity, and aspirations. One way to uncover or discover talk about planning for 2044 and thinking about our vision is to answer the question or ask the community the question, what do you want Federal Way to be known for in 2044? The vision statement or the vision is a kind of a marker that we'll use throughout the process to check our progress and to see if it aligns with what the desires are for the community and the aspirations. There are a number of chapters that we'll be working on. So here listed, if with the red footnote is a required chapter by GMA, but we also have additional chapters that we include. These are the existing chapters. You'll see there's a little bit moved around, and one was eliminated, just disassembled and put into each of its respective chapters. That's the PAAs. And then the Twin Lakes was moved to a new chapter that we're calling Centers. That'll include our Regional Growth Center and then the new South Station Subarea Plan. These are some of the proposed new chapters. There's going to be a Parks and Rec open space, human services, arts, culture, historic preservation, climate and resiliency, the centers one I just discussed, and possibly one specifically on diversity. That's undetermined at this moment. That's something we'll be discussing further with the ad hoc committee, but before I get to that part of the presentation, let's go over why we're doing this. We are a growing city in a very fast-growing region. King County was the third largest, King County was the third largest population growth in the last 10 years, compared nationally. And we need to be planning for our future. So as part of the periodic update, we look at we have to plan for the targets that are set by the county. And this isn't to say that we will receive this level of development, this many jobs and this many housing units, but we just need to be planning for and have the capacity to accommodate these. Another reason why we are updating our comprehensive plan, it's because it needs to be in compliance, like I said earlier, with the Growth Management Act and then also the countywide planning policies, and so that it can be certified by the Puget Sound Regional Council. PSRC, we need to have PSRC certification to be eligible for funding. So some of those grants we're probably talking about earlier could be related to this, or I hate to speak like that, sorry. The PSRC certification is required for some eligible funding. So we are working now to update the comprehensive plan. Like I mentioned, this quarterly meeting and something we'll be doing for the next 2 years was included in our public participation plan that was adopted by council, I think, in October. And we will be working on a number of chapters, like I listed earlier, but you can kind of see here on this Gantt chart that it's just staggered. We're going to be addressing a lot of stuff in this year and then also in 2023 with the goal to be able to have the plan completed and adopted by June of 2024. The public participation plan for this process includes a lot of public meetings like this, an ad hoc committee that will be steering the process, and there's a number of chapters that will have task forces of interested community members and stakeholders to help us be informed by the various perspectives throughout the community. One thing that we're doing new this year is we're trying to have a pretty strong online presence. So Engage FW or Engage Federal Way is a new platform that a license we got to use throughout this process, and that's the QR code. But if you just Google Engage FW, it's a great way to be able to provide feedback that staff can see and that is really interactive. There's a number of different tools we can use to ask questions and hear from the community. There's a question and answer forum right now open around downtown. So if you had a question, you could post it and staff would respond with a response, and anyone could read it. But that's just one example. How or when and where are we working on updating the comprehensive plan? Well, we've already started. Adopting the public participation plan was a first step in charting out our efforts that will lead into June of 2024. But our first kickoff event will be on March 24th. That's a Thursday, and it'll be held at the Performing Arts and Event Center. And we are really excited for this event because hopefully it'll be a time that we can congregate and engage with the community and have less worries than we did over the last 2 years. There'll be a number of interactive activities in terms of providing public feedback or comment or suggestions, and we're looking forward to this event. This is just a screenshot of some of our working calendars of some of the things that we have been working on or going to and attending. The planning division has been invited to attend a number of community meetings, such as the Chamber of Commerce luncheon. There's the Federal Way Public Market organization that has invited us to attend their community meetings and community engagement. We've also been engaging with the school district as they are included, particularly as it relates to the sub-area plan for South Station. Todd Beamer High School is located near that boundary of the countywide center. So we are going to be defining the boundary of the sub-area plan, and the school district has expressed interest in being a part of that process too. And then there's the ad hoc committee that I mentioned earlier. They'll be meeting monthly. So Councilmember Walsh will get to see a lot of each other on our quarterly LUTC meetings and then our monthly ad hoc meetings. So far, we've made some progress. Some chapters haven't been started yet, but I broke up this chart in the existing chapters that have been started and then the proposed new chapters. But so in progress right now is the introduction and the natural environment and the centers chapter. So that's around, that'll include our downtown sub-area plan. That's currently chapter 7 of the comprehensive plan, and South Station, the sub-area plan, and that'll also include work related to Twin Lakes. Also in progress is the arts, culture, historical preservation chapter that I'm hoping we can come up with a more catchy name for, but I'm working really closely with the Arts Commission and the Historical Society in developing the content for that chapter. So how the process goes is each chapter is going to be a little different, but follow the same kind of framework. Will involve the community and red line and update if it's an existing chapter, you'll get we'll prepare like a red lined version of the document of what's changed with annotations on why and what policies have changed or if they've moved because they maybe belong in a different chapter. And then we take that to the Planning Commission. And we're doing this periodically so that not all of the chapters go to the Planning Commission at once, but incrementally. So the land use chapter went to Planning Commission in February and March, and that's not to mean that that chapter is done and closed and sealed. It's just it's been taken through and it's on a shelf now. But we'll be taking everything as like a final package for adoption, and when we do our environmental or SEPA process. Any questions?
Deputy Mayor Honda?
Thank you. So what role does the Planning Commission have in this?
The Planning Commission will make a recommendation to the committee on the plan, on the comprehensive plan.
So are they studying each chapter as it comes up?
Yeah, that's how we've designed the framework. But also, I think it needs to go through Planning Commission.
Right. So my question is, and with the regular work that the Planning Commission has, well then, I believe they can meet twice a month.
Mm-hmm.
So will we actually have them meeting twice a month through the whole year?
Yeah, I think there's only like maybe 2 or 3 exceptions where they won't be meeting twice a month
Okay.
this year, or maybe the next 2 years.
Okay.
Well, I can share the schedule if you'd like it.
No, I'm glad to hear that because I know in the past we've had meetings canceled due to staffing issues or other things that have come up, and I don't want to burden them with a whole lot of work and not getting done certain things that need to be get done when they have this additional work to do. So,
Yeah, this is a heavy load, and we hope that with this kind of staggered approach, we can take the time and attention to each chapter.
okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I guess my question is, we're having a special chapter on diversity in this, and a special chapter on climate and resilience.
So.
Is that mandated, or is that just our choice?
So I guess I'll start with unpacking the question about the diversity chapter. We we don't necessarily know the route we're taking with addressing diversity throughout the plan, whether it'll be integrated into each chapter or if it'll be its own standalone chapter. That's something we'll be discussing with the ad hoc committee. That is not a mandated chapter by the state, so it's to be determined. But it was direction, I think, of council to emphasize or include diversity throughout this process. And then the climate and resiliency is not mandated. There might be a model chapter coming out soon, so I don't know if they can mandate it. Is it? It's not mandated yet, but maybe it will become mandated.
I believe there's discussions at the state level during this legislative session to make that a mandatory chapter.
Any other questions? Anybody's hand raised up there on the screen? Okay, seeing none, we will thank you for your report, and, oh, wait. Okay, thank you for a report, and we'll go to the next step when it gets here.
Great, thank you.
Okay, is there any other thing that anybody'd like to bring up?
There was something in the chat but we don't know how to get to that.
That's a comment for the IT department, Council President.
Okay.
So it's been copied over to them.
Thanks.
Okay, no other questions. I think our next meeting is not on March 7th, but it's, April, what is it?
This is March.
It's March, but the future meeting, March 7th. We'll change that to the April date that it is.
April 4th, yeah.
The year is just racing along.
Okay, seeing nothing, Councilmember President, Kosher? Okay, seeing no other blue mics, we will adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
I
you.
have
Good
the
night.
documents to sign here before we leave.
Good night.
Bye-bye.